Hey everybody, Chris from Moonlight here. Let's get to work. I'm actually having some oatmeal right now. Forgot to get breakfast before the live stream. Going to be a short one today. The reason being is that I have finished up editing the basic shots of the Quantum Terror. And I'm going to be rendering them out, composing them in a final edit, kind of an assembly cut, where I can then tighten up the edit. I've done that. The first act of the Quantum Terror is locked. The second act I'm working on locking right now, and I finish up the third act. Gonna, do a few insert shots here and there. But there's going to be a lot of rendering. You don't want to sit with me live streaming while I'm rendering. That'll essentially be me hitting render, getting up, doing some other stuff, and then coming back when it's done. I mean, the renders go pretty quick on my computer, but really. Anyway, so I thought I would do something a little fun because we're going to be getting into visual effects, and here's kind of a simple visual effect that I will preview. We've got these characters walking through a tunnel. So Matt Blackwell's characters behind him. You can see his flashlight. So what's the visual effect here? The visual effect is that we have not a lot of set. So I had to do some set extension. So what the original shot looked like was something like this, which I'll preview a little slow. You can see some places where I cut it out. Let's see, what is this? Oh, this is a cutout. This is a cutout of the for the sake of the mat. It looks like they're coming out of nowhere. So we did this key here. To about that point, and then we didn't care because they got too far in front of the camera. And then we did, let's see, green screen here. I think this might have been the original one. Anyway, you can see how noisy it is. By the way, I'm using Keylight, which is not an ideal keying software if you're dealing with heavily compressed footage. Keylight is a wonderful keying software. Don't get me wrong, but when you shoot a movie on the 7D, Ultra Key is what you want. I don't have Ultra Key at the moment. I heard it's supposed to be free with Adobe, but I don't see it on here, so I have to do a little research how to find it. But again, 7D equals heavily compressed footage, equals a lot of noise when you key. A big pain in the butt. So we have this footage here of Kristen Koshel here and Paula Sullinger pretending to walk through this dark tunnel. And then we did this composition here. Let me pull this over. Let's see if we can get a nice size here without compromising too much of our footage here. So you can see I did a lot. There's a bunch of stuff going on here. So let's kind of go through it. Let's see, what shot are we on? Let's get rid of that so we can see. Alright, so that's essentially what the shot looks like beforehand with the key. And I had to do a little bit of a soft mask around here as well so we could blend. I didn't spend probably as much time on this as a dedicated visual effects person would, but when you're making a movie all by yourself, you gotta figure out what and where is right. So let's start with this black solid back here. I just wanted to be able to see what they look like. I didn't want to have to look at this back here, so I just created a black solid and get a better idea of what they look like. And this is a dark tunnel. You're not always going to have to worry when you're dealing with dark areas of defined. Let's see what happens when we blow this up to 100%. Defined areas like the hair. You know, they both have dark hair, so it's going to recede back into the dark. Let's see, I've got some pre-comps here. So what I did, let's take a look at this. This is a pre-comp. And let's play it through with just the pre-comp behind them. You notice there's some movement behind them. And the reason I have movement behind them is because I also have, let's see, that's an adjustment layer. Looks like I added a little bit of something, some kind of flare there. And another one there, we darkened it up. So, oops. I didn't want to show those adjustment layers yet. This is, by the way, I kind of had some footage here and here. This is the key, and behind them is that masked off version. So I had one layer dedicated to masking and one layer dedicated to the key, so I wasn't confusing the two. Anyway, so what's going on here? Let's play it through. You notice that I've put an animated flashlight behind them. That's because Matt Blackwell is in this scene as well, but I didn't have him on this day. And I forgot to grab footage of him just walking with a flashlight against the green screen. So it's such a quick shot, figured a flashlight in the background is just implies that he's there, and we cut to another shot, no problem. Okay. But I want to show you here, I actually created a pre-comp of this tunnel receding into the background. You can't see most of it, but the reason I wanted to do it was I wanted to have the sense that his flashlight behind them was casting light in the tunnel. So I created, you can see here, with these keyframes here, I created kind of an animated light source. I just did that using another version of this layer. If you look, this is just a still of a miniature tunnel, and I duplicated it and then I changed the color so it's got more of a flashlighty kind of warmer color. And I corner pinned on both layers just to get the perspective of the tunnel right. And we'll go into that in more detail, things like that in more detail as we're actually creating visual effects through the live stream. But for now, just these, the perspective, the way the lines go off into infinity in this tunnel was off in comparison to the tunnel set that we had. So I had to line them up somewhat so that the eye would believe that it was one and the same tunnel. So anyway, so we created, like I said, an adjustment layer, and let's see if we can you can see we just hide the mask. It's just a lighter layer, but when we mask it off and then animate that mask, it kind of looks like just light flickering around or moving around as if It's the light from a flashlight of somebody who's walking. Going back to the perspective for a second, this tunnel is a perspective gag. This is the end of the tunnel right here. I painted, like Wile E. Coyote would in a Roadrunner cartoon, I painted a perspective gag of a tunnel going off into the distance. I just figured out what the eye line of what I was shooting at was going to be, and I made that the vanishing point. So you have something called a horizon line here. That's your eye line. So if you draw a horizon line across this way, choose a single point of perspective and draw it out. And I didn't get it quite right in this shot. You can see it kind of bends off. But who notices in the final shot, right? Okay, so that is that. Let's go back to the composition here. So far we have them walking with a flashlight behind them. But we also have, let's see, what's the next layer? Oh, just in general color. You know, this area is a bit too bright, so I created an adjustment layer, and I masked it. So we have a little darker area there. And then I did another mask here. Let's see what that one looks like. Darkened it again. It was just way too bright. Look, it's just way too bright around their feet. So we wanted to darken it up. And then these are null layers. Null layers are for motion tracking. I'll talk about motion tracking. What did we motion track in this shot? Let's see. But let's see first what's going on here. Okay, so a big problem here is obviously they still look like they're on a set, because here's the set here, and here's me giving direction with the monitor there. We had different hand signals for different directions. So, trade secret, I'm not going to tell you what that hand signal means. You can figure it out for yourself. But we don't want it on set. So, created a wall. And this wall is actually just a extension of this piece here. I just cropped this out, moved it over, blew it up, and darkened it. The reason that I just didn't do it from a still photo is that there's kind of noise and grain and stuff, and I wanted to keep it consistent here. So, oh no, I'm wrong. That is a Photoshop layer. I did use a still. Did I add grain to it? I must have added grain to it. Nope, just level and balance. Anyway, so we also added here, check this out, this gray solid here. We masked it out to darken these, look at, because it's still really bright in these areas. So I used a gray solid, and then I just used a blend mode. You see I used overlay. Let's turn that off, see what it looks like. So turn it off. You can still see the walls a bit, that's just because I lowered the opacity. So let's turn that back to an overlay. Alright, so next, lens flares. I don't have fancy lens flare packets, so I created these little lens flare blurs in Photoshop, and if you look over here, they're attached to null objects. Why isn't this one? Do they both move? Yeah, they do. Sometimes I can't remember what I did, but anyway, oh, I must have tracked it straight to... Not always recommended, but... Okay. So, let's go back to... Let's just click on a layer where we don't see a bunch of masks. So this is now what we have. It looks kind of silly because their flashlights aren't on. I didn't want flashlights shining in the camera while we were working in front of a green screen, so I had them hold their flashlights so we could then turn on other lens flares, and that's what these adjustment layers are for. Again, these are not nice, like, I'll have to see if I can invest in a a nicer lens flare plug-in packet, but I don't have any money at the moment for it, so I'm just using the regular lens flares, which are fine. I mean, they're generic looking. Anyone that uses After Effects would frown upon them, but most people who go to the movies don't understand After Effects plugins, so you know they're not going to care if the lens flare is like your generic Adobe lens flare. But if you'd like to see me get better plugins, I think now is a good time to remind everybody that you can find Christopher Moonlight on Patreon, or there should be a PayPal donate button below, so check that out. Don't have to. If you're broke like me, then, you know, I understand. But if you're not, and you're getting something out of this, and you want to help me out, I appreciate it. Alright, so what's this last adjustment layer? Aha! Just a little color correcting here, some color balance changes. We subtracted some green and we subtracted some red. And we used over here, let's see. I should do that. There you can see the difference. Not much. Takes a moment to catch up. We're using the levels to darken it up. See, they still look pretty bright here. When it looks this bright, to me, it looks very unrealistic. It looks a little too sharp. So we want to tone those highlights down. And then here the color fixes. See, it looks a lot greener here. Usually when you're in the dark, things look bluer. Although I try and leave a little color, and you see there's still some green here. I hate watching movies where they just make everything kind of a solid tonal blue. I also use a hue and saturation just to knock the blue back a little bit so it wasn't a little too colorful. But anyway, so that's it. So we went from excuse me. We went from this to the skip the null objects. This. Not bad for, you know, a few seconds shot. Let's look at it finished. Now I did actually add some other stuff here, but this is a new computer and I haven't imported everything yet. What I had before, I also had some what are called lens wax. Look, they're gone, so I get the color bars. But I had actually done some lens whacking, which is taking the lens off of your camera a little bit and then kind of moving it around so light leaks in through the side and gets more kind of a lens flare look. And then I had some flares going on here. So the final shot, see if I can find it. Let's see. Let's see. It's coming up in a second. You see we got some extra flares here. Oh, miniature tunnel shot. Matt Blackwell walking in the background.
Had angles, turns to it.
Let's look at that again. By the way, shout out to the Crawdad. They were selling them to be cooked and eaten at the HEB, and I rescued it. I bought it, along with a bunch of his friends.
Tunnel we were in.
Put him in a shot, and then I released them into the creek right by where I live,
The way where that thing
where
came from?
there are other crawdads. So I saved a life making this movie. We do not eat our actors.
Isn't this the way where that thing came from?
So anyway, this is just a neat little insert moment.
Are you sure we should
So
go
there
this
you
way?
go. Here's the finished shot with the lens flares. Just kind of gives a sense that they really are
I
immersed
was
in a
this
tunnel. By the way, let's see.
Isn't-
That's what I'm talking about here. Other lens here, lens
The
whacking.
way where that thing came
Kind of
from?
ties the shot together. Now this is a miniature shot, and again, this is the same tunnel. You can see back here very faintly the painting. It's not ideal, but this shot isn't done yet. We're going to go back and we're going to color correct this so it tonally matches this. Because you can see there's obviously a big difference in the way that the light feels here in terms of color and in, the dynamic range, the levels, the curves. So we will go back and color correct this, and we'll color correct this and this, all to match. More green screen. We've got more green screen work to do. Here's a very bright miniature shot, so we'll color correct this to match. Ooh. Matt Blackwell was truly scary in this movie, by the way. Aha. Hey, check this out. This is kind of spoilers here if you don't want to see this. I mean, not too bad, but I want to show you this. This is me combining miniature shots with full shots of the actors. I couldn't have them be in this shot because this is a miniature. So what we did is, some dramatic music. We're getting closer, closer, and now it's full shot.
Shit. What are we gonna do now?
Full shot, miniature shot, full shot, miniature shot, full shot.
No,
Full shot.
no, screw that.
We need to go up, not down.
It's going to be sounds. There's something coming down the tunnel for them, but they can't see what it
I believe
is.
you'll have to take your grievances up with him.
Full shot. Full shot. So you get the idea. We wanted them crawling down this tunnel. I'm going to give away the trick of this tunnel right now. We obviously didn't have a vertical tunnel. I'm going to show you the next little bit of the next scene. The tunnel was made out of styrofoam. So in this shot, they're crawling down a tunnel. You can't have them actually hang on to a styrofoam tunnel. So we just had them, we laid the tunnel down. Paul is actually sitting. He's sitting. We just turned the camera at different angles so it looks like they're crawling down. And then we'd prop the tunnel up and they would just be standing there. He's actually standing on the floor. Here's a miniature shot so we can have the flashlight looking down. Let's kind of skip ahead here. Again, they're on the floor, so we just had Anthony Gutierrez, our director of photography, turn the camera on its side. You really could not notice. Again, they're just sitting on the ground pretending to crawl down. As a miniature shot. Okay, wait a minute, we're gonna stop there. Something's coming for them. Obviously, this is a miniature with green screen, so we're gonna be keying out the green screen. But I've said enough for today. I want you guys to tune in next time. It's been fun. Like I said, this has been a short one. We've only been at this for about, I don't know, it looks like about 28 minutes. So I'm going to wrap it up this time. Hopefully you've learned something that's a bit more of an overview. So I'm going to be editing or finishing up the renders of the edits from Friday through the weekend, and I'm planning on being back on Monday. So I hope you'll join me, and by that time I will hopefully have something picked out for us to start thinking about visual effects. So thank you very much again. If you find this useful and you want to support me, just look down below. There's the Patreon. Is Christopher Moonlight. You'll see a donate button, PayPal there. I'm going to try and add the Patreon stuff to everything, but if you don't see it there, just search Christopher Moonlight on Patreon. Don't forget to like Christopher Moonlight and the Quantum Terror on Facebook. There's also quantumterror.blogspot.com. There's a lot of information on the Quantum Terror, the production, that sort of thing. Also, want to give a shout out to Kristen Koshel and Paula Sullinger. Follow them. Kristen just landed another leading role. I forget the name of the movie. I think it was called Toy Box or Toy Boxes or something like that. But looks like it's going to be awesome. So congratulations, Kristen. All right, everyone. See you back here soon, and keep making your movies.